Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Morning.
John, you want to call the roll?
Yes. Secretary Chaudhry is absent. Superintendent Chowdhury is absent. Mr. Derenberg,
Present.
Ms. Eberhardt,
Here.
Mr. Gibbons,
Here.
Ms. Lawler is present. Val Lasden is designee for
Present.
Department of Planning, and Chair Casemer.
Here. Thank you. Thank you, John. Before we move on in the agenda, I just want to introduce, although one of them's not, both of them aren't here personally, we do have two new members, new Secretary of Planning and a new Secretary of General Services. The new Secretary of Planning is Rebecca Flora. Secretary Flora was nominated by Governor Moore on January 18th and has over 30 years of leadership experience in project management, organizational development, sustainability and resiliency, integration, and community and economic development. Secretary Flora was most recently the owner of Remake Group LLC in Chestertown from 2010 to 2022, which focused on innovative, complex, and trailblazing projects that advance sustainable societies and best practices. Val's representing her this morning. And our new Secretary of General Services, Atif Chaudhry, is here with us. Welcome. Secretary Chaudhry was appointed by Governor Moore on January 12th, previously serving as the Maryland Department of Health Deputy Secretary of Operations since January 2021. Secretary Chaudhry oversaw the MDH healthcare system, the Office of Facilities Management and Development, the Office of Preparedness and Response, the Office of Safety and Secure Transport, and the Office of Contract Management and Procurement. Mr. Chaudhry previously served as the Acting Deputy Secretary of Operations for the Maryland Department of Health since 2020, and the Administration's Director of the Office of Facilities Management and Development since 2017. Welcome, Atif. We're glad to have you. Glad you can make it today.
Thank you, Senator. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any revisions to the agenda?
No, Mr. Chair, there are not this time.
Any public comment?
And no request for public comment today.
Okay. So to begin our meeting, we've Alex come up with a suggestion that we have an executive director's report, which I think is a great idea. So Alex, you want to go ahead?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This month, we're inaugurating our new component to the monthly meeting agendas, specifically an executive director's report, which will come often early in the meeting, right after public comments. In this executive director's report, I will report to you on any significant actions taken by me or staff, particularly those that are within the executive director's discretion as authorized by you. An example of this would be the extension of any deadlines for specific activities within the IAC's funding programs, or signing of interagency memoranda of understanding or other agreements required to carry out IAC functions. This month, I have two items in my report for you. The first item is an update on the progress of our preparations to move the IAC's offices from the current location to the warehouse at Camden Yards as approved last year by the Commission. Our lease for the new space begins April 1st. Because of the time required to complete procurement of the fit-out work to prepare the space for our use, and then for the selected contractor to perform the work, our current estimated move-in date is in June. However, to facilitate our transition and to support the State Department of Education in its space needs in the Grasmick building, the Stadium Authority has graciously offered to provide temporary space for at least part of our staff in its building as of April 1st so that we may begin moving some staff and items to the new location prior to June. This is much appreciated, and I and our entire staff are very excited about making the move to the warehouse. I look forward to providing further updates in the coming months. The second item in my report today is, per the Chair's request in January, to comment on the letter of December 30th that the Maryland Association of Boards of Education, known as MABE, and the Public School Superintendents Association of Maryland, or PSAM, wrote to Governor Moore, in which they expressed their position on 5 topics related to the funding of pre-K-12 school programs and facilities, and the new requirements associated with the blueprint for Maryland's future.
This is a
The
letter
letter-
we all have in our packets, right?
Yes, this letter
Okay.
is just after the table of contents in your agenda packet.
Go ahead.
The letter stated a number of concerns and made some specific requests pertaining to the 5 topics. Of these topics, 3 have potential direct impacts on IAC activities, but I think that all 5 merit a few comments, so I'll provide those now. First, MABE and PSAM request that the state continue to hold harmless the LEAs in their operational funding grants for another year for any enrollment declines suffered by the LEAs in the wake of the pandemic. Because this request pertains to operational funds, the matter involves primarily the State Department of Education rather than the IAC and does not implicate the IAC in any direct manner. However, I would note that the IAC is quite aware of the issue and is working closely with the LEAs to understand the longer-term impacts of enrollment changes on each LEA's need for facilities and the LEA's potential portfolio strategies and their related capital needs. One way in which we've done this is to coordinate over the last year with each LEA around a facilities capacity study and to evaluate LEA's enrollment projections annually. The second topic raised by MABE and PSAM is a request that the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which was legislation passed in 2022, be amended to explicitly add special education students, English language learners, and students experiencing homelessness to the category of low-income pre-kindergarten students to which the LEAs must offer full-day pre-K services beginning in fiscal 24 rather than a later year, and that funding be provided to support this expansion. Although, again, that operating funding is not within the purview of the IAC, many LEAs may lack some or all of the facility space required to serve both the expanded set of students mentioned in this point and some of the low-income 3- and 4-year-old pre-K students that prior to the Blueprint law were optional for the LEAs to serve. A number of LEAs have expressed to IAC staff that these new pre-K mandates create significant capital needs, and they are requesting assistance from the IAC to obtain, improve, and in some cases reconfigure the needed new spaces for the expanded pre-K services. In addition, MABE and PSAM's 4th topic was a request for additional state capital support to be provided to LEAs to make available the facilities required to deliver the expanded pre-K and CTE programming described in the Blueprint. Specifically on the CTE side, the groups anticipate the need for potentially new technical high schools or major renovations of comprehensive high school facilities to accommodate expanded career technology education programming. As a result of the Blueprint legislation and a separate mandate from 2022's House Bill 1290, the IAC is working with MSDE and the Blueprint Accountability and Implementation Board, known as AIB, over the course of the next few months in a facilities work group that will include representatives from a number of LEAs, large and small, from some counties and from MSDE's content area offices. This work group will explore options for adjusting the IAC's funding formulas to take into account the additional spaces LEAs may need in order to deliver the expanded pre-K and CTE programming required by the Blueprint. And I look forward to providing updates on the progress of this work group in coming meetings. The third request made by MABE and PSAM involved asking the state to enact adjustments to both operating and capital funding for schools that would address the increases in costs resulting from inflation in recent years. The IAC already adjusts its capital grant allocations to projects on at least an annual basis. Each year, the IAC collects data from the LEAs on the cost of construction projects completed in the previous year by the LEAs and calculates average costs per square foot. The IAC then adopts an inflation-adjusted official cost per square foot that it uses in making project allocations for the upcoming fiscal year. The IAC did this last summer and is about to begin the process again this spring to adjust the rate once again. In addition, the IAC has provisions in place to consider project-specific requests from an LEA to increase the state's participation in that project for reasons of inflationary cost increases if specific criteria are met. So the IAC has a couple of processes and tools in place now that grapple with the inflationary pressures and we're watching those carefully, including keeping tabs on the industry indicators that show what's happening with construction inflation and the sort of the factors that feed into that. So we're keeping close tabs on those. The fifth and last topic raised by Mabin Pazam relates to a request that the state fund a designated blueprint coordinator in each LEA. While again, this is an operational issue rather than a facilities or capital issue, IAC staff do understand the LEA's concern and their often limited staff capacity. The IAC is working through its regional facilities managers, of which one is assigned to each LEA, to understand the facilities related ramifications of blueprint for each LEA, and each one is different, to help the LEAs grapple with the blueprint as part of the technical assistance we provide around their portfolio management. I know you can see that these issues are complex and often interrelated. If you'd like more information about the blueprint, IAC's work around the blueprint, or have any questions about the issues I've touched upon today, please feel free to reach out to me. Happy to talk more at another opportunity with you. And that concludes the report.
Thank you, Alex. Very good. Any questions to Alex about the comments he just made? Okay, Alex, you want to go on with the consent agenda, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Consent agenda items 2A through I include administrative items, including last month's minutes, new contracts, revisions to previously approved contracts, project reversions, the project closeouts, one property transfer, modifications to a roof replacement project at Elkton Middle School, and easements. Item 2J is the Built to Learn project status report. This month's does not include any new additions, simply shows incremental updates to project progress. And finally, item 1K is a facility status change routine. Nothing of sort of significance to add here, so I'll stand for any questions on these items.
Any questions on consent agenda items A through I from anybody? Do we hear a motion we approve items A through I?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Lala and Ms. Eberhardt. All in favor? Any more discussion on those items? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Let's go to item 3. Amendment request for the FY 2021 School Safety Grant Program in Baltimore County. Arabia?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the
Morning.
Commission. Baltimore County is seeking IAC approval to rescind $350,000 allocated through the FY 2021 School Grant Program for the installation of the intercom replacement project at Hereford Middle School and realign the allocation to supplement the funding shortfall to cover the rescoping of the Cockeysville Middle School intercom replacement project and increase the state share due to recent bids for the intercom replacement projects at Perry Hall Elementary and Dugwood Elementary Schools. Eileen Glad, the Regional Facilities Manager for Baltimore County, is available to provide additional project-related information on the LEA's request if there are any questions. In the meantime, I will read the motion, which is to approve the rescission of allocations for the FY 2021 School Safety Grant Program for Hereford Middle School totaling $350,000, to approve scope modifications to the Cockeysville Middle School intercom replacement project to include the installation of a district-wide intercom server, and to approve the reallocation of available funds to fully fund 3 previously approved projects.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I hear a motion to support that? Secretary Chaudhry, second by Ms. Eberhardt. Any discussion on this motion, on this issue? Does everybody understand? Eileen, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Item 4, adoption of the FY 2024 90% capital improvement program project recommendations. Arabia?
Actually, Mr. Chair, I'll make some comments to start here and then hand it over to Arabia. Before our Funding Programs Manager, Arabia Davis, takes us through the 90% recommendations, I'd like to provide for new members and the public some background information about the CIP process. First, as you all know, it's a period with a lot of changes and transitions going on at the state level. Much at this point is unknown, and we, like everyone, expect we'll learn more and obtain more certainty about our operating environment as the coming weeks of session unfold. IAC staff are taking care to collect all available information, maintain good communications with stakeholders, and working hard to maintain enough flexibility to make adjustments in response to coming developments as they happen and deliver as much as we possibly can, as equitably as we possibly can, to all the public school students in Maryland. The annual CIP process begins in October when school district CIP requests are due to the IAC. Following Maryland law and IAC regulations, the IAC is required to approve the CIP in 3 stages. First, in December, the IAC approves recommended allocations constituting 75% of the preliminary total school construction allocation we expect to receive. Then in February, the IAC approves recommended allocations constituting 90% of the total CIP expected in the governor's preliminary capital budget. Note that these allocations are not final approvals for 2 reasons. First, Maryland law mandates that the IAC not approve 100% level allocations before May 1st of each year. And second, the total CIP budget that we have to work with is not finalized until it's enacted in the capital budget bill by the General Assembly, which can take place as late as April. As a result, the IAC returns in May to finalize all the allocations using 100% of the total school construction allocation included in that capital budget bill. This year in December, the IAC approved 75% recommendations based upon anticipated funding of $280 million, which equated to the 75% level, $210 million in allocations. Since that time, the governor's preliminary capital budget was released that includes $485 million for school construction. At this point, the IAC by law is required to adopt recommendations equaling 90% of that figure. These 90% allocations, as mentioned before, are not final approvals because the final total budget is still subject to change by the General Assembly. It's possible that the General Assembly could direct that some of that $485 million go through non-CIP programs. In that case, the staff would recommend adjustments, and the IAC would need to approve final allocations in May that make use of 100% of whatever is provided through the CIP. In addition, the governor's preliminary budget includes a separate $100 million allocation to support a headquarters facility in Maryland for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, if the FBI chooses a site in Maryland. If it doesn't, then those $100 million will instead go to school construction. We will, of course, update the commission as soon as the outcome of that decision is known. Staff recommends that the commission today approve these recommendations. And if you approve this action, staff will reopen the allocation window to allow LEAs to submit revisions and additional applications so that they may make most complete use of these significantly increased available funds. We, of course, will keep you updated throughout the legislative session as to developments affecting the IAC's programs and funding. And beginning next month's meeting, we will present legislative updates as part of the agenda. Now, I will ask Arabia to walk us through the staff recommended 90% allocations. Arabia?
Okay, before Arabia begins, does anyone have any questions about Alex's summary, which was, I think, very useful? Okay, Arabia, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Consistent with the governor's preliminary capital budget of $485 million, staff of the IAC are recommending the adoption of $226.5 million more for the 90% round of the public school construction program, for a total recommendation of $436.5 million for 152 projects. As a reminder to the members and the public, the IAC sets a proportional funding target allocation range for each LEA at the beginning of the CIP cycle that is based upon the LEA's enrollment and local wealth. Those amounts are preliminary, but a good guide to potential funding. With the currently estimated funding levels, IAC staff applied the same proportion to the total expected available funding. However, some LEAs did not have sufficient eligible projects to use all of their funding. We have held some additional funding in reserve and will make final adjustments at the May meeting. Staff of the IAC continue to work with all the local education agencies to understand their financial construction needs. For jurisdictions that may need time to reconsider project submissions or have requested funding below their anticipated target, staff requested the Commission consider reopening the application process to allow the evaluation of additional funding requests to fully maximize the available funding. For this round, the staff recommendations includes add-on incentives established in last year's House Bill 1290, which increases the maximum state allocation for projects that meet established criteria as it pertains to a school's concentration of poverty, maintenance performance, and net zero energy status. The incentives do stack, so the LEA can be eligible for more than one, but no project can receive more than 100% of the eligible project cost. We anticipate that additional modifications to the state share will occur as we continue to work with the LEAs as appropriate to ensure that the add-ons are captured for all eligible projects. IAC staff also performed a recalculation for EGRC eligibility to ensure that enrollments only include full-time students and not part-time students. And as a result, it was determined that Harford County is eligible for EGRC funds and that Wacomico County was not eligible due to its enrollment growth not being above 150% of the 5-year statewide average. If we can move to page 47, the summary of project request.
You want to explain what EGRC is too, for those
Yes.
who do not know?
Enrollment growth in relocatable classrooms.
Okay.
The IC received a total of 249 project requests totaling $833 million from 23 local education agencies and the Maryland School for the Blind. A number of the project submissions included requests for funding through the Built to Learn program. These projects were designated with the R status and are approved on a rolling basis. Staff of the IC are working with each local education agency to determine when those projects will be presented for approval. While there are still a few projects designated with a U status, staff are confident that the outstanding issues will be resolved prior to the 100% round. There were some changes to the December approval shown in column F to adhere to Baltimore County's request to reallocate funding for 4 systemic projects to other eligible projects in the FY24 CIP. In addition, funding has been removed for the replacement project at Buckingham Elementary in Worcester and has been deferred due to enrollment and adjacency issues. Staff are working with the LEA to determine a suitable solution. In the meantime, $521,000 has been moved to the statewide reserved account for future allocation. Column G lists staff's proposed recommendations for the 90% round. Staff are also recommending an additional planning approval for the Mount Washington modular addition in Baltimore City, bringing the total recommended request to 8. Additional planning approvals that do not include a request for construction funding will be presented to the IAC in May. Column H shows the staff's preliminary thinking regarding the projected allocations in May of the final $49 million or 10% of the $485 million in presumed CIP funding. You will see about $14.5 million of those $49 million are allocated to LEAs, while the remaining $33.5 million are not allocated, but instead are temporarily left in the IAC's reserve. This was done because the funding level included in the governor's preliminary capital budget is so much higher than what was expected last fall when LEAs submitted their CIP requests. So they did not include projects sufficient to utilize all of the funds expected to be allocatable. Some LEAs may want to amend their CIP request to include additional eligible projects. The reserved dollars will enable the IAC to allocate those funds in May to eligible projects that LEAs may bring forward to the IAC between now and the end of the reopened CIP amendment window in late March. In the meantime, staff will work with the LEAs to obtain the information needed to support allocations to projects. Staff expects to bring recommendations to the IAC in May to fully allocate the unallocated amount. The projected figures shown in the remaining columns are subject to change based on adjustments to project allocations, submissions of new funding requests, potential increases to the summary of state obligations, final capital budget, and any new programs that may become through the 2023 legislative session. I can read the motion now and then stand for questions. The motion is to recommend to the Budget Committee of the General Assembly and the Department of Legislative Services, in accordance with Educational Article 5304, the fiscal year 2024 90% capital improvement program IAC staff recommendations for each school system of 90% recommendation details by project, column N, staff recommendations 90% new authorization, including minor adjustments as presented, and column M, approved 75% new authorization December 8th, 2022, for a total current recommendation of $436.5 million, or 90% of the school construction allocation included in the capital budget submitted by the governor for fiscal year 2024, contingent upon resolution of outstanding issues for projects with a U status, and to approve the extension of the deadline for resubmission of CIP funding requests, including acceptance of new CIP project requests until March 17, 2023.
2023, 2024.
2023.
Oh, so it's wrong in the book here.
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Okay. So someone like to make that motion, so for purposes of getting into any discussion we want to have, there a motion to support Ms. Eberhardt?
Move.
Makes a motion. Ms. Law is second. Nice job, Arabia.
Thank you.
A lot of stuff there.
Yes.
Anyone? Ms. Eberhardt? You're on mute.
All right. Okay. This is great news about the additional money. My question is the $100 million that is designated for the FBI headquarters. Is that supposed to be decided this year? Alex, do you know that? And why I'm going in that direction, if it is, will we be prepared to be able to allocate, and will the LEAs be ready to have projects for this additional $100 million? Or if not, will it automatically then go into next year's budget? Do you know any more about that?
Unfortunately, we don't have any additional detail available to us at this point. It's not certain how quickly the federal government will move on deciding which site. We understand that, a number of jurisdictions have been vying for the success in that area. And then we really don't know what the timing is and whether that will make these dollars available by the time we would want to apply them to this CIP cycle. If not, I would hope that those will become available in the next CIP cycle, be held over in the correct manner. But again, we're waiting for more guidance from our partner agencies on that. And obviously we'll update you all as soon as we have more news.
And will all the LEAs be aware that this might be in the pipeline coming if we don't get the FBI, so they could be thinking ahead of additional projects that they might want to have ready?
Absolutely. Our regional facilities managers will be working on in their monthly meetings, and sometimes even more frequent communications with the LEAs, to talk about what projects might help them move forward needed work if those dollars become available.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the capital budget allocations? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye or raise your hands. All opposed? Thank you. Item 5, the Maryland Historical Trust Agreement Extension.
Mr. Chair,
Hannah,
because
can you do it?
Cassandra is not available,
Yeah,
Hannah
Hannah.
will present this
Right,
item.
okay.
Thank you.
Hannah?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. In 2013, the Maryland Historical Trust, or MHT, entered into an agreement that essentially streamlines the historical preservation review for schools construction projects receiving state funds. Schools were divided into 3 groups based on age and evaluated accordingly. Facilities built after 1960 were not subject to review by MHT. This allows MHT and the LEAs to focus their energies on schools that are more likely to have elements of historical significance. MHT has provided us with an extension to the programmatic agreement in order to prevent the agreement from expiring in the next couple of weeks. If the agreement were to expire, then the LEAs would be required to consult with MHT on every school project regardless of age. The extension is for 2 years, which would give MHT and IAC staff time to review and update the agreement, including the school age ranges that are currently used and are now 10 years out of date. IAC staff would then recommend adoption of an updated agreement to the IAC. Liz Casso is here representing MHT and is available to answer any questions you might have. If there are no questions, I can read the motion.
Why don't you go ahead and read the motion first?
Sure. To approve the extension of the duration of the programmatic agreement between the Maryland Historical Trust and the Maryland Public School Construction Program through December 31st, 2024.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Liz. Do I hear a motion to support what was just said by Hannah? Val?
Motion to support.
Hear a second?
Second.
Mr. Gibbons. Any discussion on the Maryland Historical Trust Agreement, which is a good thing for LEAs? Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Raise your hands. Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Liz, for being here.
Thank you.
Item 6, FY 2023 Capital Improvement Program Amendment, Calvert County Public Rec Schools, Beach Elementary School Replacement Project Allocation. Raven,
Yes.
for that?
Yes, the IEC summary of state future project obligations includes a balance totaling $122,000 for the replacement of Beach Elementary School. In response, Calvert County would like to amend their FY 2023 CIP by applying funding from their prior year appropriations account to take care of the balance due for the project. IEC staff supports the LEA's request to satisfy the state's funding commitment. Jean Shanholtz, the Regional Facilities Manager, is available to respond to project-related questions. I can read the motion now, which is to approve a transfer of $122,000 from the prior year funds held in reserve for Calvert County to the FY 2023 Capital Improvement Program Beach Elementary School Replacement Project.
Do I hear a motion to support that report?
So moved.
So moved by Ms. Law. Second, Ms. Everhart. Any discussion on the Calvert County Beach Elementary School Replacement Project? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 7, request for Built to Learn funding approval, Howard County Public Schools.
Yes.
Again.
Yes, the Build to Learn Act authorizes the Maryland Stadium Authority to sell $2.2 billion in bonds for school construction projects. However, until the full extent to which funding will be available to support debt service is known, MSA estimates that the available bond proceeds will be around $1.7 billion. The law also makes the cost of planning, design, furniture, and fixtures eligible for state participation, which is important to ensure that occupants are housed in buildings that are well-designed, healthy, safe, and educationally sufficient. The IEC is being asked to approve design funding totaling $1,742,000 to renovate and construct an addition at Oakland Mills Middle School in Howard County. IEC staff recommend approval of the request. Rodney, the Regional Facilities Manager for Howard County, is available to respond to technical questions. The motion is to approve Howard County Public Schools Built to Learn request for design funding only for the renovation addition project at Oakland Mills Middle, totaling $1,742,000. Funding factors established in the draft worksheet are preliminary until the IAC approves the project for construction funding at a later date. Because the project is expected to be fully funded through BTL, it will not be added to the IAC's summary of future obligations.
Do I hear a motion to that effect? Ms. Everhart, second. Mr. Gibbons, any comments, questions about the motion? Thank you for being here, Rodney.
Mr. Chair, if I might add one point as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is the first request under the Built to Learn Act for design funding only, and it is a very good move on the part of Howard County because this school is a school with a high need for facilities investment, and it is good timing to put the design funds from the state into the process to prepare that project to be moved forward in a timely fashion with a construction allocation at a later date. So this is really this is going to be a practice that I think other LEAs will follow. It's definitely a very good move, and I certainly think it's a perfect timing for this.
Good. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Any announcements? I might add that, and you can explain a little bit, Alex, we're going to be in Annapolis next week with our bill. You want to give a short description of what our bill contains this year?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Currently pending at the General Assembly is a bill to complete the process of moving the IAC with its support functions to an independent agency status within the state. And it is a move that would allow the IAC to take more direct responsibility for some of the support functions that have been provided for the last few years by the State Department of Education, which include finance, IT, human resources, and procurement. This will be a net gain to the IAC and the State Department of Education, and for that reason, Superintendent Chaudhary has expressed his support for the bill. And we'll have our hearings next week on both Senate and House sides, and look forward to answering any questions that the legislators might have on that. It will help us significantly, I think, have some efficiencies and move this work forward even better than we've been able to do so far. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions about the bill? Okay. Is there anything anyone else wants to bring up right now?
Chair Casemeyer, can I
Yes.
make a request?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Now that we have two Chaudharys, we're going to have to distinguish.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to the vote that is a Chaudhary on record.
Yeah, okay. I could go
this makes me-
superintendent and secretary. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, and the spelling is different too.
Yes.
So really quickly, can we have a session where we invite the AIB, Rachel Heiss, to do an overview of the blueprint and what it's doing? I feel like it would be good for the commission members to just really get a grounding on where things are at with the blueprint and what they're doing. I know the team is on it, but I think the commission members should take it in. I also sit on the JCEP board. And just I invited them to do that as well. And I think it'll be very important for commission members to really get a sense of the overall vision, the details, where we are, what districts are doing, etc. So I think it would help us equip us more, especially with the new secretaries as well. Yep.
Sure. We'll set it up and try to get it done as quickly as we can.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Anything else anybody wants to talk about? Okay, I hear a motion to adjourn. Anyone want to make that motion? Ms. Everhart, second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Thank you all very much. See you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.